So last week I talked about some of the amenities that I give up by choosing to live on a boat. So why do I live on a boat? I get asked this question a lot. I've been asked by family, friends, even random people that I run into when they find out that I do live on a boat. There's several reasons why I choose to live on a boat, but it's going to be different for each person. But I'll go through the top 3 for me. Reason number 1, money. It's not that I don't make enough money to rent an apartment or even get a loan to buy a house. I actually used to own a house. The problem with owning a house is I did own a house, and that was an issue when it came to financing a second house. So when I moved down to Sitka from South Central Alaska, I ended up having to rent a place. Well, in Sitka, the rent is excessively expensive. I mean, it's about anywhere between $1,000 and say about $1,200 to $1,500 if you want a decent place. That's per month, plus electric. So most of the places there are also electric heat, so you're looking at about another, say, $200 on top of that. Now, I could afford to do that, and that's what I ended up having to do, but I couldn't finance a house because I already owned a house that I owed a ton of money on. The other problem is housing in Sitka is also extremely expensive. If you want a general shack with 4 walls and a roof that keeps the rain out, because it rains a lot, you're going to be paying anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000. That's a ton of money. So while I was in Sitka, I did some research. And the mooring costs for a boat were relatively cheap. A couple $100, plus your electric. So why would I not buy a boat? Because I can get that boat paid off. I own the boat, then I don't owe anything else on the boat. In addition, I'm only paying a couple $100 plus another $150 or so for my utilities. That's a pretty big saving. So for me, it wasn't just about the money. I mean, yes, it was a big cost savings and I could live a lot cheaper. But for me, there was more to it. I've always dreamed about sailing the world, but there's a problem with this. I've never actually really been on a boat for a long time. So I don't know what it's like to live on a boat. You have a lot less space. From last week's video, there's some things that you have to give up. Was I willing to give those things up? So I decided that not only could I save some money, but it was kind of an investment in my future. I could learn whether or not living on a boat was for me, whether it was something I was willing to do long term, whether I got seasick, and ultimately whether or not I was capable of living this kind of lifestyle. Those are things that people don't really consider when they get the notion to sail the world. Living on a boat is a lot different than living in a house. And there's a lot more to it. So, I use this as an experiment. I could buy a boat, live a lot cheaper, and if it wasn't for me, I could sell it and get a lot of my money back. Win-win, right? The other big reason why I bought a boat was I needed to downsize. When I started looking around the place that I was renting, it was just full of stuff. Now, yeah, I could have downsized and continued to rent, but once you downsize, there's no reason to rent such a big space. Fortunately, I had a ton of stuff. I had so much stuff that I moved in to the boat, and my goal was to not have a storage unit. It took me 4 years to get there to where I no longer had storage. So I had a lot of stuff. So those are the 3 biggest reasons why I live on a boat. Now there's a lot of reasons why people choose to live on boats, but a lot of it goes back to number 1. But there's a lot of advantages to that. Your house, the boat, goes wherever you want it. And I'm going to tell you, my backyard is amazing.